बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलाम वालेकुम पाकिस्तान। मैं हूं हैदर मेहदी और मेरा प्रोग्राम देखने का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। नाज़रीन, ये जो वीलॉग है ये अंग्रेज़ी में है और ये मैं कनाडा टाइम के मुताबिक 26 नवंबर सुबह 1 बजे के करीब कर रहा हूँ, जो पाकिस्तान के टाइम के मुताबिक आपके 11 बजे होंगे, और इमरान साहब की स्पीच से चंद घंटे पहले। ये वीलॉग अंग्रेज़ी में इसलिए कर रहा हूँ कि लिखा आर्टिकल अंग्रेज़ी में था, तो उसी को मैं पढ़ के सुना रहा हूँ। और ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि ये मैं अभी पेश करूँ, इसलिए कि आपको पता होना चाहिए कि पाकिस्तान के लोगों का सामना कि कौन सी क़ुव्वतों के साथ है या किस क़ुव्वत के साथ है। तो अब मैं अंग्रेज़ी में स्विच कर रहा हूँ। इंशाल्लाह इमरान साहब की तकरीर के बाद अल्लाह सब खैर वाफ़ियत से कर दे, मैं फिर उर्दू में भी ये पेश करूँगा और अपना जायज़ा और तज़िया जो इमरान की साहब की तकरीर और उसके बाद 26 तारीख का वो भी पेश करूँगा। बहुत शुक्रिया। Assalamu alaikum, my viewers and lovely listeners from Pakistan and the world over. This vlog is in English. It's a very important vlog. I'm recording this at about 1 a.m. in the morning on the 26th of November, which is 11 p.m. Pakistan time, a few hours before Imran's speech. I hope to do the Urdu version, inshallah, tomorrow after Imran's speech, and I hope everything goes well and nothing untowards happen with my perspective on Imran's speech and the events of that day. I'm going to read this out because it's an article which I had written, and it's an article that I think is very important for people to listen, to know, to understand, for the people of Pakistan. What are they up against and what are the forces that they are up against? I've titled this this talk as the Pakistan's elite capture by its military and whether it's the final nail in the coffin for Pakistan. For 75 years, most Pakistanis, including myself, were living under this delusion that the Pakistan Army was one of those rare institutions in Pakistan that had not been corrupted, was not internally weakened, and as compromised as the other state institutions of the Pakistan public sector institution, like its executive, its governance, its bureaucracy, its judiciary, its law enforcement agencies, its parliament. In fact, it was better than every other aspect of Pakistani society, including the media, including civil society, including business. In fact, such was our simplicity and ignorance that every military intervention that happened was welcomed by the people of Pakistan, whether it was Ayub or Yahya or Zia or Musharraf. They were hailed, and the generals became the white knights riding on their chargers to save this country from the terrible, corrupt, rapacious misgovernance of the corrupt politicians of Pakistan. In recent times, for the last 30 years, the Sharifs and the Zardaris and the Bhuttos. A massive propaganda built up this perception of this white knight on a charger of the Pakistan Army and its generals. National songs eulogizing the brave sacrifices of the military, which started in earnest in 1965, and I'll tell you why. And the cunning use of state media created this glamorous aura of supreme sacrifice by the Pakistan Army for the nation, and the image of the institution of the army being a trustworthy, honest, efficient, disciplined, corruption-free institution whose sole interest was the well-being of the state. The 1965 war, which was an unmitigated disaster in my opinion and in the opinion of many unbiased historians, was converted into a great victory for Pakistan through this massive propaganda machine. This was a war which we stupidly blundered into, led by a third-rate general, the then president of Pakistan, Ayub Khan, who had been fired, by the way, for cowardice in the Second World War by General Petraeus, and who had also been passed over for promotion by the Quaid-e-Azam to the rank of Major General. He was led into this blunder by his Machiavellian Foreign Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who plays a major role in the future history of Pakistan, and his daughter and now his grandson. Such was the incompetence of the military system that the Pakistan Army CNC General Musa himself, a duffer, did know that the Indians had attacked on 6th September and was woken up in his bedroom by a telephone call from the air chief to inform him that the Indians were attacking Lahore. No inquiry was held to determine how Pakistan blundered into this war. And then after the war, the famous Tashkent Declaration signed by President Bhutto and President Ayub Khan and Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri was initially termed as a great victory for Pakistan, and later on used by this highly Machiavellian and highly ambitious Zulfikar Ali Bhutto as a sellout to further his political career, taking advantage of the anti-army and anti-Ayub sentiment in the country. 1971 war was a logical extension of 1965. We lost half the country. No one was punished. The Hamoodur Rahman Commission gathered dust, still gathering dust. The usurper declared by Hamoodur Rahman Commission who died was laid with full military honors, General Yahya. No general paid the penalty for this crime against the country. Bajwa, in his recent farewell speech, said it was a political defeat, not a military defeat, conveniently forgetting that the military had been in power uninterrupted from 1958 till 1971, till the debacle happened. But this massive destabilization of the army, in my opinion, the first devastating blow to the military culture and its discipline and its selection and training and promotions happened under General Zia when he took over in 1977. With hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars in Saudi funds pouring into the hands of the Pakistan Army, especially the ISI, making what the US Congress said in a committee hearing, Pakistan generals sugar daddies. General Zia, General Akhtar Rahman and hundreds of other officers, many of whom I know personally, became rich overnight, and their families still live in absolute luxury. Bank managers in BCCI, who I know today and they're still alive and around, tell the very sad, sordid, sickening tales of how General Zia and his family opened bank accounts with millions of dollars. Drug money became another major source of illicit funding, which the military, especially the ISI, used to acquire funds, much like what the CIA did in the Iran-Contra funding case, if you know about that. I personally know of a convoy loaded with illicit drugs, which was stopped by the Rangers and the Frontier Constabulary in Balochistan, because the guys in the convoys refused to pay up and insisted on talking to the IGFC in Quetta. This is really interesting. When they finally managed to contact the IGFC, the person in the convoy said to the IC, identified himself, gave his rank, name, number, turned out to be a JCO of the ISI. And after the IGFC said to hold on, he then checked with his corps commander. The corps commander said, let me check with GHQ. He comes back to the IGFC and says, yes, these are our men, let them go. And the convoy was allowed to proceed. The rot had set in the army in a big way by the time General Zia went to meet his maker. Military ingress into our civilian institutions was massive. General Hamid Gul, now eulogized as a great patriot, I had received so many of his social media speeches, in my opinion was the first major architect in 1988 of the behind-the-scenes military puppeteering by the army in putting together the IGI, the Islami Jamhuri Ittihad of these parties under Nawaz Sharif against Benazir Bhutto to defeat her in the 1988 elections after Zia's death. And when she won, ensuring that she was a hamstrung PM with one hand tied behind her back and all the key portfolios in her cabinet under military oversight and military nominees. General Hamid Gul's subsequent endeavors to enter politics and reinvent himself as an Islamic revolutionary and the champion of anti-Americanism in Pakistan doesn't cut much ice with those who know him and remember how ambitious, self-centered and self-serving he was. Yet, this facade of a clean, honest, efficient, disciplined military machine remained, and slightly dented, but still intact. Those voices in the media and civil society who spoke out against this creeping military fascism were quickly labeled as traitors, Indian agents, raw agents, and their voices subdued. The first decade of decadence under civilian rule from 1988 to 1999. By the way, the military rules are also decadent rules, let me say that. But the decade of decadence from 1988 to 1999 had the military firmly in control of all key ministries. They called the shots. The army and the ISI had acquired massive power and used it to manipulate politicians and everything in the political sphere. It's very important to know that Mian Nawaz Sharif's attempts to control this army and confront them in his when he was sacking Jahangir Karamat and appointing generals of his choice did not emanate from a desire for civilian supremacy over the military, but from a fear, rightly so in his mind, that the army was still the one institution that he could not control, was not fully under his thumb as he wanted. So he could have an open field if it was in his control, as it is now, an open field to loot and plunder at will, and therefore all his run-ins with the army must be seen in that context. Let me come to General Musharraf's martial law. In my opinion, General Musharraf's 9-year martial law was the precursor of what we see today as the complete devastation and destruction of the military's internal systems of accountability and checks and balances and merit-based promotions, postings and transfers, and the rise to senior leadership positions of highly corrupt and compromised people, and the massive and widespread corruption in its highest ranks, as we have seen in the latest saga of the 12 billion rupees amassed by General Bajwa and his family, which is declared, we don't know how much is undeclared, and the wealth of many of the 3 stars around him and before. Musharraf's 9-year martial law were also the period in which the army senior leadership became real estate guys. Perhaps everyone did, brigadiers too, major generals, lieutenant colonels too. And the army, Pakistan's biggest, richest and most powerful real estate company, and its biggest, most powerful corporate juggernaut with over nearly 50 companies in every sphere of business. During this period under General Musharraf, the army used its clout in governance to acquire even more powers, even more authority. They passed legislation which would give them access to much greater authority and, above all, acquire a lot of land. The official military policy of distributing largesse of perks and privileges and plots and benefits and power and influence amongst senior officers became widespread in these years. This plot at Major General, that plot at Lieutenant General, and if you're the AG, Adjutant General, you get additional perks, and if you're the MS, you get that plot, and if you're a Corps Commander and you have a DH under you get another 2-3 plots, and if you're a 4-star, then you get 1 for becoming a 4-star, and if you become a chief, then you become 1 for becoming a chief, and if you leave as a chief, then you get another 1 chief. And then there is this huge, massive elite colony in Pindi, in which all the army chiefs have their houses and they live in absolute luxury, not abject, absolute luxury. And General Bajwa has this house on 5 canals with 40 canals of a park behind it, and 5 plots for the next 5 chiefs to come. So they want to make sure that everyone is catered for and the future ones will look after them. It was open daylight robbery, loot and plunder, all legal. This does not include the hundreds of millions and perhaps billions, as we've seen with Bajwa, that these generals and these senior army leaders made illegally because of their power and positions. And really, this senior leadership was either fully handcuffed, even if not corrupt, and or compromised by the business community and by the tremendous power that they had, which allowed them to broker deals that made them hundreds of billions of rupees. This is where the civilian brokers started to make money, and this is General Musharraf's period, and people like Mohsin Beg, the gentleman in this famous picture that is going around social media, talking very closely with General Asim Munir, the new nominated army chief, and many others who acquired this tremendous ingress into the military and influence and prominence through the abundant use of the 3 W's, wine, women and wealth, and befriended the senior military leaders and political leaders and became the brokers. There was a time I told one of General Musharraf's former ISPR chiefs, I said, sir, all you have to do is to get hold of these 20 agents or brokers of military deals who live on Margala Road, beat the hell out of them, and they will give you the names of every single general who they have bribed, whose kids they have sent to America, paid for their education, their bank accounts and Swiss bank accounts, wherever. Anyway, that's another story. The second decade of civilian decadence was from 2007 to 2018. We saw again the army solidify its process of civilian control. You can now see the pattern. These civilian politicians came and they were corrupt. There's no, I mean, Sharifs were corrupt and the Zardaris were corrupt. But they were silently behind the scenes. The army was minting money with these guys up front taking all the hits of the corruption, while the army at the background and its senior leadership in complete control of all key government positions and making money. General Kiani's 6 years as army chief saw him severely compromise his own ethics and financial integrity and reputation because of widespread allegation and cases against his brothers, who, as is commonly said, used General Kiani's clout and his position as the army chief to make an understatement obscene amounts of money, with General Kiani refusing to date to answer questions on the subject, including to myself. The war on terror from the early 2000s again fueled ISI and military coffers with money flooding the country, further strengthened the ISI and the army and its ingress into the entire governance structure and its control and hold over politicians who could be easily bought and sold or blackmailed. The judiciary, the business community, the bureaucracy, the police were all infested with military and ISI people, willingly or unwillingly. The use of military safe houses, ISI safe houses, military intelligence safe houses to wine and dine and womanize became a military tactic to ensnare people unsuspectingly, blackmail them, as well as torture them. The honey trap became a classic military tactic in Pakistan. Highly questionable tactics were then used for illegal imprisonment, abduction, torture, killings by the army, the military intelligence, the frontier corps, the rangers. These became commonplace, especially in Balochistan and former FATA and in Swat and even urban Karachi. Kamran Tasuri, currently the Sindh governor, was allegedly instrumental, and people from his own party say that, in the assassination of an MQM leader in 2018 in an internal party power struggle. Tasuri is commonly understood allegedly by everyone to be an ISI man, and allegedly the hit on the MQM leader who was assassinated was carried out by the ISI. All this was carried out under the blanket cover and patriotic rallying cry of national security, and the same mantra used by the Argentine military to abduct and kill thousands of people. Only a massive judicial investigation will uncover the terrible misuse and abuse by the military in the thousands of disappearances, abductions, illegal confinements, torture, physical abuse, rape and killing by the military and by its associated police and the bureaucracy, the civilian bureaucracy which was in their control. It is in Balochistan that this infamous Major General Faisal Nasir, the current DGC of ISI, earned his cruel reputation of ruthlessness and ability to break terrorists through his torture methods, which he has later applied on Dr. Shahbaz and Senator Azam Safati and God knows how many others. Many military officers, especially serving in these areas, had this unchecked power, and they used this to benefit themselves financially. But still the nation thought that this was a disciplined, honest, corruption-free, patriotic institution, thanks to the incredible propaganda of the ISPR, the Inter-Services Public Relations, especially under that mastermind, Lieutenant General Asim Munir, who turned a very below-average homeopathic army chief like Rahil into the greatest Muslim commander-in-chief in our minds after Salahuddin Ayyubi. The ISI had now become a formidable propaganda machine, churning out songs, TV dramas, plays, movies, military events, which the nation swallowed hook, line and sinker. As this military monster became more and more powerful, acquired more and more wealth, controlled more and more governance, acquired unquestioning power over the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the police and every other state institution, either through coercion or blackmail. By the time General Bajwa took over the army 6 years ago in 2016, the army had become a massive monster, and it was the first time, as we now know, that the chief was also under the direct control, obligated to and compromised to Pakistan's most corrupt political family, the Sharifs. His 6 years, in my opinion, completely destroyed whatever little was left of some good order and military discipline in the army. My former colleagues in Khaki will understand this phrase of good order and military discipline. This is from section 55 of the Pakistan Army, and it is etched into every officer's memory. This section, called Kambal or blanket, was used to haul up any officer for wrongdoing, even if we were unable to lay a specific charge against him, and was a great shield to stop officers from doing something that was wrong. Good order and military discipline was shredded to bits by Bajwa and company as they went on the most destructive, most devastating political engineering and corruption, financial corruption spree ever seen in the history of Pakistan and the Pakistan Army. But for Imran and the 9th April regime change disaster, this nation would still have thought of this institution and its senior leaders as the only disciplined, honest, corruption-free and patriotic institution in the country. Unfortunately, they are not. They are morally and financially corrupt, compromised, spineless, unable to stand up for what's right, and not for the country, but only for themselves and their bank accounts. The unbridled power of the army chief is now routinely misused and abused through agencies like the MI, the ISI, the Rangers, the FC and other institutions of the Pakistan Army in every sphere of Pakistan, whether it's public and private. The expectations of people, if any, and this is really important, the expectations of the people, if any, that there will be some change for the better in the fascism, the totalitarianism and the control of Pakistani politics by the Pakistan Army, or there will be a reduction in the corruption in the Pakistan Army under a new army chief, is delusional and bordering on insanity. I'll repeat it, is delusional and bordering on insanity. The army leadership is now firmly in the control of our kleptocratic, plutocratic mafia elite, the political mafia elite, the Sharifs and the Zardaris. This is the best thing, and I repeat, 9th April is the best thing that has ever happened to Pakistan, that the nation has finally discovered that all along the biggest criminal in Pakistan's devastation and destruction was and is the leadership of the Pakistan Army, which is now fully in partnership with the corrupt politician. For this opening of our eyes, we must thank PM Imran, who made us see the ugly face of the military and its widespread filth, and to General Bajwa, who represented this ugly face and the filth. And if Pakistan has to prosper, develop, become a free democratic country, free of fascism, under fair, just and fair rule of law for everyone, high and low, equal rights and opportunities for all, freedom of speech, protection of life, property and liberty, this demon and monster has to be completely reformed and changed. It is only then that we can reform the other institutions of the country, the judiciary, the bureaucracy and the police and every other institution, the election commission included. It is only then that we can reform the other institutions. General Asim Munir, in my opinion, is just another compromised beneficiary of this military elite capturing mafia now controlled by the corrupt politicians. I do not expect anything different from General Asim Munir than what has been happening in the past. And in my opinion, they will not go easy or give up their power willingly. We need an Ataturk or a Khomeini. perhaps Imran can be one, or perhaps someone from within. اس وقت کے تک کے لیے اتنا. مجھے اجازت دیجیے. اللہ سبحانہ تعالیٰ آپ سب کو اپنے حفظ و امان میں رکھے, آپ کے پیاروں کو حفظ و امان میں رکھے, پاکستان کو اپنے حفظ و امان میں رکھے, حقیقی آزادی کی جنگ لڑنے والوں کو اپنے حفظ و امان میں رکھے. انشاءاللہ اگلی نشست تک اجازت دیجیے. الحمدللہ الہی آمین. السلام علیکم. خدا حافظ.